Now that we have a compiler and we're all set up, we can start writing programs. So what are programs made of? Well, first you need to start with the source code. The source code is human readable code, and it can get sent to a compiler which takes our code and converts it into machine language. And machine language is able to run on the computer, so therefore we can actually get a program out of it. So let's take a look at our first program. This is our first program. While many of the symbols and terms may seem confusing, what this program does is quite simple. All this program does is it writes "Hello World" onto the screen. So why does this program do this? The first thing the compiler does is it looks for something called the main function. We'll talk more about functions later, but all you need to know that this is the main function, and that anything between these braces are part of the main function. The main function is always the first thing that is run, and so the first line of code that is executed on your program is the first line of the main function. The first line of our program and the main function is the printf statement. This printf statement tells the computer to write out whatever's inside the quotes onto the screen. So this will write out "Hello World" onto the screen. Now you may have noticed that there is a /n after "Hello World," and what this does is this tells the computer to basically press enter after it wrote "Hello World" onto the screen. You'll see later on how this really applies, and it will make more sense. Finally, once it's done that, it moves on to the next line, and the next line is this return 0 line. All this does is it tells the program to leave the main function, and when you leave the main function, the program ends. You may have also noticed at the top there is this other line, this include statement. Some things are built into the C language, like the return line. However, some things are not built right into the language. The printf statement isn't built into the language itself, but it's common for programmers to want to print out things to the screen. People have written code to let us write things to the screen, and they store this code into libraries. This gives us access to the printf function. Let's try actually writing this program and running it. A source file is just a plain text file with a file name that ends in .c. The .c lets the computer know that inside there is C code. You'll need a text editor to write code. It can be any text editor. There are always simpler and fancier text editors that you can use to write code. Some add features such as color coding and auto-filling code. gedit, the text editor we'll be using for these videos, will give us some color coding so our code is easier to read. So let's open up gedit. If you just search for gedit, you'll show the text editor in Ubuntu. If you are using gedit like me, there are two options you should change from Edit Preferences. Under the Editor tab, check Insert Spaces instead of tabs, because tabs can react differently on different systems. Also enable automatic indentation, so when you move between lines, the indentation will stay the same. And decrease the tab width to either 4 or 3. Now we're all set up to write code. I'm going to save right away, so it will let the text editor know we're writing C code, and it can adjust the color coding accordingly. I'm going to create a new folder called Programs to hold all of the projects we do for these videos. And another holding the projects for this lesson. Inside of here, I'm going to name my file. You can name your file any descriptive name you want. I would recommend not using spaces as it's easier to compile. Remember to include the .c at the end of the file. So I'm going to call my program hello.c. Now that we're saved, let's start by writing our main function. I'm going to move a few lines down, and the main function is written as int main with 2 parentheses. Then we have our open brace, and I'm going to add our close brace. Next, I'm going to move into the middle and hit tab, because it is much nicer if you tab between braces. It makes your code a lot more legible and easier to follow. I'm going to add our return line, which tells the program to leave the main function once it hits that line. This right here is actually the most basic program you can write. It's a fully valid program, yet it does nothing. We don't want to do nothing, so we're going to keep going. We want to print out hello world onto the screen. We do this using the Printf function. You start by writing printf, create 2 parentheses, and write hello world, followed by our \n new line character. At the end of every C statement, you must end your lines with a semicolon, as it's done on this return statement and our printf statement. Usually, if you are starting to get errors, the semicolon is one of the first things to look for. Every statement must end in a semicolon. Now, you may think we're done, except we would get an error if we tried to compile this. C right now does not know what the printf function is, so we have to tell it what it is. To do this, we have to include our standard input-output library by writing #include, then between 2 angled brackets we will write stdio.h. Unlike a normal C statement, the include statement does not have a semicolon. You'll quickly pick up what needs a semicolon and what doesn't. Now, if we save our file, we are done our source code. This is a complete program that prints out hello world onto the screen. To actually run it, we need to compile this. All the programs we write are going to be run and compiled using the terminal. The terminal can be searched for, and you'll find it. This is the terminal. The terminal works by entering commands and pressing enter to execute them. The terminal starts inside of our home folder, so if we enter ls followed by enter, this lists the contents of our home directory. As you can see, our programs folder is there, and we want to move into it. We want to change our directory into the programs folder. So we can enter cd for change directory and write the name of programs after it. After hitting enter, we have moved into this directory. If we list again, you'll see that lesson 1 is there. We'll move into that directory as well. If we ls one more time, you'll see hello.c, as well as a backup file that you can ignore. Hello.c is our source code. To compile our source code, we enter the command of our compiler, which is gcc. After writing gcc, you write the name of the file you want to enter, which is hello.c. Press enter, and if it doesn't write anything, there was no issues in your program. If we list the directory again, you'll see a new file, a.out, has revealed itself. A.out is our new program. You can run programs by writing period, / and then the name of the program. After pressing enter, you'll see our program Hello World. This is our first program. Next video, we'll be talking about output as well as handling compiler errors.